Day 1 of being a full-on wicked stepmother. I was nearly taken out on the spot by a wave of sour stench. One step forward, and I'd be choked to death by the smell. One step back, and I'd suffocate from holding my breath. I originally thought my mission was just to stir up trouble. Once the heroine marries the prince, I could just take my payoff and go home. But the system dealt me a total wild card. This is the Middle Ages, where the Black Death runs rampant. A time when no one bathes. Even the nobles. Wear lion-sized wigs to parties. It's that kind of Middle Ages. This isn't a fairy tale. This is a massive, stinky episode of Man vs. Wild. As soon as I woke up, that lethal corset nearly squeezed the life out of my waist. I fought for my life, pointing desperately at my stomach. That group of servants, reeking of thick, sour body odor, finally scrambled to set me free. In that moment, it felt like I had lungs again. Before I could even catch my breath, something even more shocking happened. A maid announced with great reverence, "The doctor is here. Quick, prepare the lady for bloodletting therapy." I glanced at the man wearing a mask, and the box he was holding in his hands. Inside were wriggling, gelatinous leeches. The doctor had a fanatical glint in his eyes. If the madam doesn't want bloodletting, how about an enema detox package? I sat bolt upright in my deathbed, and roared, "Get back, back, back." This is what they call a miracle doctor in the Middle Ages? This is clearly the offline branch office of the Grim Reaper. After driving away that deadly quack, I dragged my frail body out, preparing to meet my two bargain children. The future princess, Lilith, and her little tag-along brother, Rella. According to the original plot, I should be going to mistreat them now. At the dining table, the two of them sat cowering. I struck a pose, ready to pick a fight. But as soon as I glanced at them, I let out a startled cry. I pointed at Lilith's pale little face. "What on earth is that?" Lilith replied with fearful politeness, "Madam, it is whitening powder for the face." "That's freaking lead powder. If you apply too much, your face will rot off." And then, I looked at the 6-year-old munchkin next to her. Rella said he was about to drink a cup of milk. A maid had thoughtfully added a spoonful of white powder. "It's hot out, so I added borax as a preservative." My pupils shook with shock. It's all toxic science and disasters. I don't even need to lift a finger to mistreat them. At this rate of consumption, forget marrying a prince. It'll be a medical miracle if they last until next month. But these two are surprisingly hard to kill. Luckily, they have the protagonist aura. However, my mission is to keep them alive until the finale. For the sake of my own smooth return home, I'm tethered to these two unlucky kids. "Stop eating!" I roared, instantly flipping over the cup of poisonous borax milk. Under everyone's horrified gazes, I snatched up Lilith with one hand, and tucked Rella under my other arm, charging aggressively toward the bathroom. Today, this stepmother is going to give these medieval hicks a little shock from the Northeast bath culture. The two children were crying and wailing in terror. Rella clung to my leg for dear life, as if I were about to toss him into a vat of boiling oil. The maids outside the bathroom fell to their knees, lifting their crosses to pray, "Saint Peter protect us. The madam has gone mad." I let out a cold laugh, and locked the door behind me. Throw in the soap berries. Throw in the essential oils. Most importantly, the scrubbing mitt is the MVP. I turned into a ruthless scrubbing machine, giving those two kids a serious deep clean. "Go ahead and cry, no one is coming to save you." I scrubbed away with a maniacal grin. Honestly, if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe a human child could produce so much grime. After this whole operation, I was more exhausted than if I'd been hosing down pigs. Looking at the murky water in the tub, I realized the philosophy of medieval nobles. If you're dirty, wipe it with a cloth. If you stink, spray perfume. As long as I don't look, bacteria don't exist. In the art of cutting corners, they are truly ahead of their time. After the bath, the two children looked like they'd been skinned. Shivering uncontrollably, with teary eyes, Lilith asked, "Will I die? Like those people who get the Black Death?" I let out a sigh, tossing the superstitions of this era aside. Rest assured, bathing isn't contagious. It will only make you smell good. If you don't believe me, smell yourselves. After soothing the two startled little runts, I began the next phase of the overhaul. First up, the toilet. I never thought the day would come when I'd have to design a septic tank myself, but I couldn't stand the sewage situation. Every day in the Middle Ages is a mental breakdown. Drawing on my experience from my grandpa, helping neighbors build latrines in the countryside, I set up 3 septic tanks. I wasn't sure if the plumbing was right, but at least I ensured no one would crawl up from below. After all, defecating is a human's most vulnerable moment. In the age of cold steel, what would happen if a spear poked up from there? I really didn't want to think about it. After checking the toilet, it was finally time for dinner. I was almost fainting from hunger, but the dishes served made me want to go on a hunger strike. Bread as hard as bricks, over-fermented cheese, and a plate of goose meat still oozing blood, not even properly plucked. I wordlessly pulled a goose feather from my mouth. At that moment, my mind snapped. What kind of life is this? Even Bear Grylls would shake his head, watching Lilith and Rella hold their forks, facing that plate of biochemical weapons, yet forced to maintain their elegance. Every bite of meat they swallowed was tinged with blood. Do you also find it disgusting? Lilith's eyes met mine. She shook her head awkwardly. No. Girls shouldn't eat so much. Forget Lilith. Even little Rella couldn't manage more than a few bites. The two kids were as thin as paper. A gust of wind could blow them away. It's pathetic, the quality of life for nobles is so poor. Forget modern people. They can't even compete with my peasant ancestors. From across the ocean. At least those people knew how to pluck feathers. Stop eating. I flipped the table again. I turned around and charged into the kitchen. 10 minutes later, a steaming, fragrant, mouth-watering plate of onion stir-fried beef was on the table. Eat. If you don't finish it, I'll beat you. I menacingly slammed the plate down in front of him. I can't let the wicked stepmother persona slip. My tone must be harsh. The two kids trembled with fear, hesitantly reaching out with their forks. With the first bite, their eyes widened. The two kids who were thin as paper, instantly transformed into eating machines. Like a whirlwind, they licked the plate clean. I've been in this book for a month now, busy every single day. In this medieval world where bathing requires willpower, and medicine relies on bloodletting, trying to be a tranquil noblewoman is purely delusional. So I decided to stick to the original character design. Be the wicked stepmother who strikes fear into her stepchildren. Right now, on the castle lawn, the two human runts were gasping for air. Didn't you hear me? No laughing. Shuttle runs, get ready. I clutched a small leather whip, wearing a twisted expression. You. Yes, you, Rella. Don't you dare slack off. Go and fetch that frisbee for me again. And you, Lilith. 2-minute plank. Timing starts now. Seeing the two children so exhausted, they looked like drowned rats pulled from a pond. I curled my lip into a sinister, cold smirk. Humph. Tremble, you foolish feudal children. As long as you're in my hands. Forget being weak and sickly. Forget being chronically depressed. I'll cure all of it. Now that is a qualified wicked stepmother. At a nearby corner, several maids were shivering with fear, whispering among themselves. Lord have mercy, the madam is a devil. She's too wicked, treating the young master and mistress like beasts. I eavesdropped from the wall, listening to these rumors. I rubbed my hands in excitement, almost laughing out loud. That's exactly what I wanted. Spread the word quickly. Better yet, spread it through the entire social circle, that I am a madwoman who abuses her stepchildren. Being a good person is hard these days. Only villains live comfortably. Only by establishing this crazy persona will those old hags who want to force mistresses onto Earl Simon stay far away from me. Has this past month been easy for me? No way. Last time, I finally managed to make some onion beef. The two kids ate until their eyes gleamed with green light. Lilith even hugged my leg, sobbing and calling me a divine chef. Vanity truly is a dangerous thing. Being praised twice made me act like I was on a sugar high. I spent every day pondering new recipes, but reality gave me a sharp slap in the face. The vegetables are either radishes or cabbage. The fruit is so sour it'll make your teeth fall out. A few days ago, I finally got a batch of imported vegetables, but the logistics were terrible. Half of it was rotten by the time it arrived. I looked at that pile of rotten leaves, and my mind snapped again. To hell with it. The chef goddess is retiring. The wicked stepmother is back. Once I've trained the kids to be clean, chubby, and immune to all poisons, the gossip squad by the wall had new material. Did you hear? The madam forbade Miss Lilith from wearing makeup or dressing up. She's even taking her to the Clare family banquet. She clearly wants to humiliate her. I heard the eldest daughter of the Clares loves to bully others. Lilith is going to be torn apart. I nodded repeatedly behind the door. These servants are no good. Their imagination is too lacking. Me, not letting her wear a gown? Don't make me laugh. Do you know what those so-called noble gowns actually are? Torture devices, hardwood corsets, squeezing internal organs out of place, hoop skirts large enough to hide two grown men. Once you put that on, never mind dancing. You have to calculate your breaths by the second. Trying to steal my wicked title? That little Claire girl is still too green. One sunny day. A perfect day for trouble. I held the gold-stamped invitation, looking at the plain-faced Lilith standing before me. Her nervous fingers were twisted together, eyes darting, hesitating to speak. Finally, the moment we were about to head out, she couldn't hold back anymore. Mother. You haven't changed your clothes yet. My sweet heroine baby. I'm being this wicked. And you're still worried about me being mocked? I looked down at myself. A short velvet jacket, sharp and cool. Most importantly, I was wearing a pair of trousers, with an incredibly stylish leather belt. Under everyone's gaze, I adjusted my brooch in the mirror. Then I turned around, my lips curving into a smile that was 30% mockery, 30% indifference, and 40% nonchalance. Change? This is my battle gear. I'm going to give these hicks a little shock of freedom. Shock? Freedom? Lilith was stunned. Her sparkling eyes were full of confusion. Yes, a woman's freedom. I grabbed Lilith's hand. and marched proudly out the door. Let's go. I'm taking you to blow the roof off that place. When we stepped into the Clare family's banquet hall, the air seemed to freeze for 3 seconds. The noisy hall fell silent instantly. Dozens of eyes were pinned to us. Those looks contained shock, ridicule, and disdain. A few old traditionalists almost fainted on the spot. Good heavens! Has Lady Anna gone mad? How rude. This is simply a blatant disregard for noble decency. Look at Lilith, she's dressed like a milkmaid. I heard Anna is jealous of her beauty, so she intentionally keeps her from dressing up. What a black heart she has. I filtered out the noise automatically. In this era where chastity is branded onto everyone's forehead, having too little fabric would get you dragged to the gallows. So, I was testing the boundaries of the law. Men's clothing was my safe haven. The shirt was breathable and sweat-wicking. The trousers allowed for free movement, though it couldn't compare to modern sportswear. At least it wasn't lethal. Don't be afraid. Feeling Lilith's hand shaking, I gently patted the back of her hand and pulled her to a corner to sit down. Look at those people. I pointed to several pale noblewomen nearby. To maintain that tiny 18-inch waist, they probably haven't eaten in 3 days. And look at that baron. His wig is crooked, yet he's still acting all serious. As long as we live healthy and comfortable lives, being mocked a little won't kill us. Hearing this, Lilith subconsciously touched her ribs, seemingly remembering the fear of being controlled by a corset. She nodded thoughtfully. Halfway through the banquet, the main event arrived. The Clare family's head chef pushed a dining cart out, his face beaming with pride. Honored guests, after 3 days and nights of labor, I have created a peerless delicacy specifically for Lady Clare, the supreme jumbo pigeon pie. The chef's voice was loud and dramatic, but his eyes kept drifting toward Lady Clare. Sitting in the corner, I nibbled on some unknown nuts, while turning on my gossip radar. Something was off, very off, between this chef and the lady. Their gazes were practically intertwined, and when the chef adjusted his clothes earlier, I clearly saw a flash of lace at his waist. Wow, they're really playing a risky game. No matter the era, affairs truly are the main driver of drama. Just as I was sinking into the juicy secrets of the upper class, the chef dropped a bombshell. Hidden inside this pie are 100 live pigeons, symbolizing the lady's pure and everlasting beauty. What? Live ones? 100 of them? I dropped my nuts in shock. Lady Clare, smiling, raised her knife and let it fall, slicing open the massive crust. Countless pigeons, like a panicked flock of bombers, burst from the pie into the air. The scene was incredibly spectacular. The guests clapped and marveled, as if witnessing a miracle. But I just wanted to poke my eyes out, because I clearly saw those terrified pigeons, the moment they took flight, loosen their sphincters just a little. Green and white unknown mixtures were not only left in the pie crust, but were also airdropped indiscriminately onto the heads of the front row guests, and onto the dinner plates. My stomach churned. Is this what they call medieval romance? I wanted to give the medieval people a shock, but I ended up being shocked by them instead. I lost completely. When it comes to doing crazy things, it has to be you guys. How have humans not gone extinct yet with this behavior? The resilience of human life is truly remarkable. Seeing my face turn pale, Lady Clare arched her brow, a hint of displeasure in her eyes. It seems this dish is not to Lady Anna's taste. That one sentence was like pressing the attack button. The surrounding sycophants immediately pounced. Isn't this a slap to Lady Clare's face? Where is her upbringing? Look at her, dressed like neither a man nor a woman. I bet she's doing it just to attract the men's attention. Oh, please, if wearing pants can seduce your man, then your man is way too easy. Is he a reincarnated dog in heat? I stiffly forced a smile, and looked up at the sky. Considering they just ate pigeon droppings, I'll be merciful and not argue with them. But Lilith suddenly pulled her hand from mine, bit her lip, and stood up. Honorable Lady Clare, thank you for your concern, but I must tell everyone. My mother is not what you think she is. She treats us very well, better than anyone. As soon as she said this, the crowd was stunned for a few seconds. Then they switched to expressions of deep sorrow. Heavens, this child has been brainwashed. How tragic. It must be Stockholm Syndrome. Lilith stood in front of me, her gaze stubborn and firm. Her long, thick black hair, like seaweed, fluttered in the wind, releasing the scent of the herbal shampoo I'd custom-made. In that moment, her beauty was natural and vibrant, like a forest spirit. The eyes of the gentlemen present were fixed on her. In this moment of spotlight, the eldest daughter of the Clare family stepped out with a wine glass. She looked at Lilith, her face almost twisting with envy. Lilith is indeed a good girl. At our school, she's quite the famous socialite, isn't she? You're lying. I am not. Lilith was shaking with rage. If I may be blunt, only the lowliest peasant girls selling fish would wear such loose, rag-like clothes. You and your stepmother have completely shamed our nobility. I took a deep breath and cracked my knuckles. I can't take this anymore. You can insult me, but you cannot steal my wicked persona. I will not allow any woman in this world to be more arrogant than me. I pulled Lilith back behind me and gave a brilliant, dazzling smile. All of Lilith's clothes were made by me. I am her mother. She wears whatever I tell her to wear. Got a problem with that? I paused, my gaze sweeping the room like a blade. I don't think there's anything improper about how we're dressed. On the contrary, Miss Claire, you've truly been an eye-opener. Yesterday, you pushed Lilith into the pond, nearly killing her. Today, you publicly hurl insults, slandering her reputation. Why? Are you so sure Earl Simon will die on the battlefield and never return? Is that why you're so unscrupulously bullying his daughter? Besides, which law says a woman cannot wear comfortable clothes? Do all the ladies here tonight, after removing those lethal corsets and gowns at home, suddenly turn into fish-selling peasants? And if I may be blunt, I let out a sigh, putting on the air of a merciful prophet. The more extravagant the skirt, the more likely it is to bring disaster. I'm not just making this up. A hoop skirt so big it could fit 4 or 5 adults playing cards is essentially a mobile coffin. Miss Claire's face turned ghostly white. Seeing she couldn't out-argue me, she immediately brought out her trump card. When did I ever swallow Lilith? By Jesus! How can you slander me so? This is so unfair. Fair? I almost laughed. Many young ladies present saw it. Do I need to call them out one by one to testify? I don't mind either way. I'm just afraid of ruining everyone's appetite for pigeon droppings. Oh, I mean, pie. The surrounding people began to whisper and point. The tide of public opinion seemed to be shifting slightly. Lady Anna dares to confront her face to face. Could it be true? I've heard rumors too. That Miss Claire has a terrible temper in private. Miss Lilith is so beautiful. It's only natural she'd be envied. Hearing these discussions, Miss Claire completely panicked. She was already breathless from the tight corset. And now, consumed by rage, she suddenly felt the world spinning. Losing her balance, she fell forward stiffly, tumbling right into a nearby floor-standing candelabra. The massive hoop skirt that provided her grand presence now became the perfect fuel for the fire. Help! Help me! She screamed shrilly, rolling frantically on the floor. The guests instantly devolved into a chaotic mess. Some screamed and fled, while others collapsed to the ground in terror. My heart was racing with urgency. Everyone, get out of the way, I roared, flipping over the long table in front of me. I grabbed a water-soaked tablecloth and charged forward like a madwoman. What are you staring for? Soak the cloths in water to put out the fire. I turned back and roared, hoping to wake these nobles who were just watching the show. However, in that vast banquet hall, aside from Lilith, who rushed over without hesitation, only one stranger, a man dressed in light attire, charged forward to help. The air was thick with the scent of roasted meat. No, it was a sickening mixture of burnt fabric, scorched material, and burning protein. I stared intently at the man who kept his head low. He gripped the wet tablecloth and together we smothered the flames on Turkey Claire. The good news, Claire wasn't dead. She was just medium rare. The bad news, the first thing she did upon regaining her senses, wasn't to thank God, but to call for a killing to liven things up. Take these useless peasants to the stables and drag them to death. 4 maidservants instantly fell to their knees. The sound of their knees hitting the floor made even my heart ache in sympathy. They wept piteously, but in Claire's eyes, they weren't even as valuable as the scorched carpet. It wasn't their fault. Before my brain could process it, my mouth had already blurted it out. But in the noisy banquet hall, my weak protest was like the buzzing of a mosquito. Those guards were like NPCs who only followed orders. They grabbed the maids by their hair and dragged them out like dead dogs. One maid struggled so fiercely that it probably spoiled Miss Claire's mood. A cold blade flashed, and I watched as that guard, as if slicing fruit, sliced off the woman's nose. I suddenly covered my eyes. A scream trapped in my throat. In that moment, the world seemed to go on mute, leaving only a buzzing tinnitus in my ears. I peeked through the gaps in my fingers. Those well-dressed nobles were actually sipping tea and sighing calmly, remarking that Miss Claire was exceptionally spirited today. This world is insane. Or rather, only I, a soul from the 21st century, am the anomaly here. Fear washed over me like ice water. I couldn't save them. I am useless. I want to go home. Tears fell uncontrollably, until a pair of expensive leather boots forced their way into my field of vision. I slowly looked up. It was the man who had helped me put out the fire. In this era where people hardly even know what a bath is, he was so clean he looked like a glitch in the system. His short silver hair was fresh and fluffy, and his body didn't smell of musk used to mask foul odors. Instead, he exuded a cool, sharp scent. In this medieval world full of savages, he was like a golden SSR card shining brightly. Anna Isabella, tell me why you are crying. My heart hammered wildly. Big brother, someone just had their nose sliced off. Should I be laughing instead of crying? I frantically scanned his equipment out of the corner of my eye. The fabric of his clothes looked like high-end silk imported from the East. Under the candlelight, it shimmered like money. No, like gold coins. It practically announced to the world that he was loaded. Just as my brain was about to overheat, Lilith, the little girl, finally walked over slowly. She bowed to the man with great respect. And even a hint of fear. Father. I almost failed you. The legendary Earl Simon, the Bluebeard who supposedly killed 2 wives. In my mind, Simon was a bearded, yellow-toothed old man smelling of booze. But you're telling me, my cheap husband is actually a cold, mysterious god of a man? I know people married young in this era. But he looks like he's only in his early 30s. He's incredibly well-preserved. Did he use a cheat code too? You've grown taller. Simon's reaction was as indifferent as if he were greeting a tree. I trembled beside them. Why did this man return to the city so suddenly? This wasn't in the script. Wasn't he supposed to be playing local king? In his fiefdom? I'm screwed. The good days of me acting as I pleased, and sleeping in every day, are probably over. Hi, Lilith. May I invite you to gaze at the moon? While I was still processing the fact that my husband is a hottie, a glittering little boy jumped out from behind Simon. Prince Charlie. This guy came with his own background music. The emerald on him almost blinded me. Right then, the system, which had been silent for ages, suddenly piped up. Host, the prince is online. The plot is finally on track. Congratulations, you're not far from death now. If I had heard the word death before today, I would have jumped for joy, because it meant I could go back to the modern world. With Wi-Fi, air conditioning, and hot pot. But that bloody scene just now triggered my PTSD. System, let's be reasonable. Is my ending definitely the gallows? Is there a painless way to die? Well, based on big data. Host, you will most likely die by execution. Whether it's beheading, hanging, or something else. Listen to that. Is that how you talk to a human? In other words, I might die, even more miserably than that maid, who just had her nose cut off. My mood instantly hit rock bottom. A fire just happened here. And several servants have died. Your Highness, I apologize, but I am in no mood for moongazing. Prince Charlie was taken aback. My apologies, Miss Lilith. I was being forward. Greasy. Truly greasy. A playboy attitude at such a young age. No wonder Lilith doesn't like him. Mother, I feel dizzy. Let's go home. Lilith grabbed my arm. Like she was clutching a lifeline. Right now, immediately, I squeezed her hand back. Without even a proper bow, I dragged the child and ran. Who knows what other crazy things this Claire family might pull. Inside the carriage, the atmosphere was so awkward you could die. Lilith sat bolt upright. Like a schoolgirl who had done something wrong, not daring to look up. Simon's gaze, on the other hand, kept sweeping over me. Upon returning to the castle, I practically scrambled out of the carriage. Anna. Simon called out to me. My spine stiffened. I turned around mechanically, forcing a smile that looked worse than crying. Boss. I mean, Lord Earl, what are your orders? Go? Go where? To die? Go change your clothes. He frowned, his eyes lingering on my men's clothing for a second, filled with disdain. So he's embarrassed by my androgynous look, thinking it disgraces him. I tugged at the collar of my shirt. Sorry. I'll go burn them right now. Tomorrow. Have Selena accompany you to make some proper clothes. Can I? On the company's tab? I was stunned. Simon's frown deepened, as if he were tolerating my stupidity. If you like. Also, if the Claires give you trouble, tell me. After saying that, he walked away without looking back. I stood there dazed. Those overbearing CEO lines. Why do they sound a bit pleasant? That very night, I felt gloriously ill. A high fever hit me hard. My mind was filled with the screams of the maids being dragged away. And Claire's distorted face. The system was still making snide remarks. Songjua, your mental fortitude is too weak. They're just a few NPCs. There will be plenty of bigger scenes later. This is nothing. My teeth chattered from the cold. I didn't even have the strength to curse it. The maid named Selena followed the quack medical theories of this era, and actually wanted to find a sumac doctor to bleed me. Bleeding? Do you think I'm not dying fast enough? I wanted to resist, but my body felt as if it had been run over by a steamroller, unable to move. In that moment, I really wanted to give up. Maybe it's better to just die like this. At least I wouldn't have to face the warning of the gallows. Warning. The system's voice suddenly became sharp and piercing. Host, please pay attention. Going to the execution ground is the core of this book, the climax of face-slapping the scum. If you die prematurely now, you cannot settle your account to return home. Your soul will be trapped in this world forever, becoming a wandering ghost. Fine, you win. Amidst the system's roaring, my consciousness began to blur. I seemed to see Simon standing by my bed. He looked very impatient, but he didn't have a bloodletting knife in his hand. Who are you? What do you want? I was delirious from the fever, my mind only holding the character profile the system had forced on me. I am Anna Simon, the third wife of the Earl. My ideal is to gain the Earl's trust and affection, to be a virtuous wife and mother, and to find a good husband for Lilith. I heard him give a cold laugh. The fever has made her stupid. Selena, no more bloodletting. Bring a basin of cold water for physical cooling. If you bleed this brain anymore, it'll be completely empty. I was sick for half a month. During this time, I received top-level treatment. Simon banned that quack doctor from the door. Relying on cold compresses and sheer willpower, I managed to pull through. Once I recovered, I discovered that Simon wasn't as terrifying as I had imagined. Although he lived in the castle, he still maintained a clear distance from us. He lived on the 3rd floor, busy as a CEO preparing for an IPO, with endless official documents to handle every day. His attitude toward the children was also mysterious. He didn't hit or scold them, but he certainly wasn't close either. Whenever Lilith and Rella saw him, they were like mice seeing a cat, not even daring to breathe loudly. One sleepless night, I hugged my pillow and crawled into Lilith's bed. Sweetie, why are you so afraid of your father? Lilith huddled under the covers. Father is just too cold. I haven't seen him smile since I was born. But Lady Anna, don't worry, he's a reasonable man. Before long, he'll return to his fiefdom. It turned out Simon had come back this time to attend the king's 6th wedding. The king was quite the character, marrying wives like he was collecting stamps. As a cousin, Simon had to show up for appearances and collect some rewards. He'd be leaving in 3 months. Hearing this news, I breathed a long sigh of relief. As long as he doesn't stay permanently, I can continue being a salted fish. By the way, that Prince Charlie, do you like him? Lilith hesitated. My lady, should I like him? My mother used to teach me that joining the royal family is a girl's highest honor. But the way he looks at me makes me very uncomfortable. I reached out and ruffled her hair. Lilith, remember this. Instinct is a woman's survival charm from God. If someone makes you uncomfortable, whether he's a prince or a god, he's trash. Stay away from him. Lilith's eyes lit up, and she nodded vigorously. Simon was indeed an oddball. He loved cleanliness, didn't care for vanity, and loathed the outdated ideas of people like Dr. Sumac. If I hadn't tested him at the banquet, using modern slang that he didn't react to, I would have really suspected he was a fellow transmigrator. One day, we had to attend a mandatory official event. Halfway there, the carriage stopped moving. Sir, madam, there's a traffic jam ahead. Selena peeked at Simon. He was reading the newspaper, without even looking up. Then let's go back. Lord Earl, this is the confession carnival arranged by the king. If we don't go, wouldn't it be a bit disrespectful? I reminded him weakly. Simon finally lifted his eyelids, giving me a look as if I were mentally challenged. Go back. Fine, you're the boss, you call the shots. Actually, I didn't want to go either. Just listen to the name, Confession Carnival. What kind of cult-like event is that? Just as the driver was about to turn around, my curiosity got the best of me. I pushed open the window and looked out. The square ahead was packed with people. It was incredibly lively. What's going on up there? Are they giving out eggs? Selena looked terrified yet slightly excited. No, my lady. They are judging a witch. Witch. My smile froze on my face. Where are there witches in this world? Is this Harry Potter? It's true. They tie the suspect up and throw her in the water. Those who sink and drown are ordinary people. Those who float are witches with magic. I heard they've caught several recently. What? If Archimedes heard this, he'd jump out of his grave to hit someone. So no matter what, you die? Is this the legendary logical loop? A cold snort came from inside the carriage. Simon put down his newspaper. This method is an improvement over 2 years ago. Back then, they used fire. Those who burned to death were humans. Those who didn't were witches. Pity the fire was too strong that year. They all burned to death. They've really worked hard to hit their quotas. This year, they finally learned to use water's buoyancy. I involuntarily clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. It was absolutely absurd. On the way back, I was somewhat dazed. But as I pushed the window open for a moment, the scene made my blood pressure skyrocket to 180. That Father Harry, who recently debuted in the city, was holding a crucifix, spouting nonsense like a shaman. The woman surrounded in the middle had disheveled clothes, and her body was covered in bloody lashes. Her eyes were hollow, like a doll whose soul had been drained. The surrounding crowd of NPC-like onlookers didn't find it cruel. Instead, they watched like it was a circus act. The most outrageous part was the brown-haired guard. This guy actually unbuckled his belt in public and was about to relieve himself on the woman. He was even chanting, "This is to ward off evil. This witch used sorcery to seduce me in the cell last night, trying to ruin my pure spirit." It was a complete collapse of morality. The string of reason in my brain snapped with a loud bang. To hell with transmigrator rules. To hell with self-preservation. Stop the carriage. I kicked the door open, holding up the layers of my heavy skirt. I prepared to jump out. I had barely taken 2 steps on the ground when someone grabbed me by the collar. I looked back. It was Simon. His brow was furrowed. You can't save her. When he wants someone's head, even the king would hand him the knife. I looked at him, Taking a deep breath. Simon, since we can't follow the rules, then we'll use a glitch. I stared into his eyes, revealing a meaningful smile. I have a way. As long as you're willing to play along with me. Simon arched an eyebrow, a micro-expression indicating his interest. What do you want to do? Use magic to defeat magic. I straightened my skirt and squeezed out 2 crocodile tears. It might be a bit embarrassing for you, but I don't care anymore. Simon's world-weary face remained calm. As you wish. As long as you don't make me talk to those idiots. Done. With that promise, I can raise some hell. I rushed into the crowd in 3 steps, pointed at the brown-haired man still fixing his pants, took a deep breath, and let out a scream. Quick, someone. Catch this wizard. That one shout instantly silenced the jeering crowd. Who is this crazy woman? Looking at her clothes, she's a noble. Why is she in a crowd of men? Father Harry. See if she's possessed by a demon. The men began to close in on me, the stench of their breath almost killing me on the spot. I covered my nose and signaled to my maid, Selena. Behind me. Selena was indeed my gold standard assistant. Without a word, she led the guards to charge forward. Before the brown-haired man could react, they pinned him to the ground and rubbed his face in the dirt. The technique was so professional I wanted to give them a thumbs up. By then, Father Harry finally reacted. He walked over with a dark face, until he saw Simon strolling over, leisurely behind me. Only then did his constipated face manage to squeeze out a fake smile. So it is Lady Anna. If I may be blunt, this is not a place for a ladies' afternoon tea. The wizard you mentioned. I've studied at the seminary for 40 years, and have never heard of such nonsense. He stared at me, his eyes filled with warning. I pulled out my handkerchief and wiped away tears that didn't even exist. Father, how could I joke about such a serious matter? I only dared to report it because I have solid proof. Just now, when this gentleman unbuckled his pants, I saw the mark of the devil. As soon as I said this, the crowd erupted in an uproar. Father Harry's mouth twitched uncontrollably. He probably didn't expect me to be so shameless. Heavens, she actually peaked. Earl Simon's reputation must be glowing green with cuckoldry. If I were him, I'd have taken my own life by now. Gossip buzzed around us like flies. I peeked at Simon. The man was leaning against a tree, arms crossed, with an expression that said, I'm just quietly watching you all act out this farce. Not only did he feel no shame, he almost looked like he wanted to laugh. Seeing that Simon wouldn't intervene, Father Harry grew bolder. He looked at me with pure disdain. Lady Anna, men have strong hearts, and their own inner holy light. How could they be seduced by demons? Besides, evil power is spread through intercourse. How could a man be involved in that? I acted as if I were too embarrassed to speak, yet forced by duty. Is that why the mark is located on his buttocks? The brown-haired man on the ground finally came to his senses. He struggled and spat at me. That's slander. I'm a real man. How could I ever consort with a demon? I sneered, my eyes shifting instantly from an innocent flower to a ruthless queen. Anna, this is unreasonable. Since you claim you're not a wizard, then take off your pants to prove your innocence. I won't. You can kill me, but you won't humiliate me. Humph, I let out a short, mocking laugh. If you won't take them off, you have something to hide. Look, everyone. He refuses to take them off. That's the ironclad proof. No, no, no. I have a birthmark on my buttocks, but I've had it since my mother gave birth to me. They're all left by the devil. The guard was reaching his limit, starting to talk nonsense. Father Harry, you must believe me. I immediately seized the opening. I took a few steps back, and leaned back against Simon, clutching my temples to start the performance. Oh, a chosen wizard. No wonder I felt dizzy and nauseous the moment I got close to you. Everyone, don't you agree? Once I set the rhythm, the crowd's fickle. Nature immediately exploded. Oh. Now that the lady says it, I feel a bit dizzy too. I can't catch my breath either. Is this the wizard's magnetic field? Nonsense. With hundreds of people crowded by a stinking ditch on a hot day, it would be a miracle if they didn't feel faint. I pressed my advantage, and he just tried to do something unspeakable. To that woman in public. Such evil behavior. What else could it be but demonic possession? No. I was just drunk. Enough, Lady Anna. We cannot take only your word for it. Fine, then let's follow the rules. Throw both of them into the river for a buoyancy test. Isn't that the way? The crowd grew excited. They didn't care who died. They only cared for a good show. Father Harry was backed into a corner. If he refused, he'd be seen as protecting a wizard, a title he couldn't afford to wear. Then let it begin. I added with a smile, they must be tied together, to prevent anyone from using magic to escape. After saying that, I gave Selena a look. Selena understood immediately. She stepped forward with a grin. Oh my. This rope isn't tied securely enough. Let me help. A second before the two were pushed into the water. With lightning speed, Selena delivered a sharp chop to the woman's neck. The unconscious woman, unable to struggle, sank straight down like a stone. But the conscious brown-haired man, driven by survival instinct, thrashed around frantically. I stared intently at the surface, my palms sweating. Subconsciously, I gripped Simon's arm beside me. Simon hissed and pulled his hand away. What did you grow up eating? How are you so strong? Sorry, I apologized insincerely, my eyes still glued to the river. A few seconds later, the crowd erupted. He's up. That man came up. He's still alive. The woman was unconscious when pulled out, but she was innocent. Father Harry's face was ashen. He walked up to us. Earl, this woman is the daughter of the rebel Raoul. Aren't you afraid your wife will face divine retribution? Simon wrinkled his nose in disgust. Get lost. Your breath stinks. Harry froze, his gaze as venomous as a snake. Simon turned around, grabbed my sleeve, and wiped his hand on it. So dirty. My mouth twitched. Isn't he at the peak of his power right now? You dare provoke him? Can't I just be tired of living? After that day, I became famous in the city. Lilith and Rella practically worshipped me. They bragged to everyone they met. Yes, that's my brave stepmother, Anna Isabella. But I knew this was just the calm before the storm. Saving the rebel leader's daughter, and inventing the concept of a male wizard. Harry wanted to eat me alive. I didn't expect the retribution to come so fast, or for the reasons to be so absurd. Lady Claire reported me to Harry as a witch. Reason 1, I predicted Miss Claire would have bad luck. And then her dress was burned by a candle. Reason 2, I like to wear men's clothes. This was called gender identity disorder, a sign of demonic possession. Reason 3, I forced children to bathe, supposedly to spread a virus through the water source. At the trial, I looked at this crowd of fanatical lunatics, and suddenly felt very tired. Simon was right. For some people, you can save their lives, but you can't save their minds. Father Harry held that notorious book, the Malleus Maleficarum, reading out my crimes one by one. The crowd below shouted, "Burn her!" as if this were a grand carnival. In the crowd, I saw Lilith, the girl who once cared only for romance, now bit her lip, her face covered in tears. She gave me one last deep look and ran off. I knew she was going to beg Prince Charlie for mercy. According to the original plot, she would marry the prince, and live happily ever after. And I, the wicked stepmother, was finally meeting my end. That's fine. Mission accomplished. It's time for me to go. I sat in that dark, damp cell for 3 months. The day before the execution, Simon came. The man still had that same immaculate, unbothered look. If I ask you now if you regret it, would that seem too sentimental? I sat cross-legged on the moldy straw. Regret my foot. If I could do it again, I definitely wouldn't save them. I'm no saint. But some things in this world just need to be done. At least this time, I died for what I believed in. Simon was silent for a long time. Suddenly, he laughed. Anna. Actually, I know everything. Know what? That I have a system? His words were shocking. My hand, which was scratching my foot, froze midair. Simon leaned against the bars. I've been bound to an awakening system since birth. It showed me a different world. It told me what science is, what democracy is, and what human rights are. But Anna, the more I knew, the more painful it became. I watched these ignorant people, watched this rotting world, and I couldn't change a thing. I could only be a bystander, watching everything with cold eyes. My jaw nearly hit the floor. So that was why he was always so world-weary. You sure have a lot of patience. I planned to keep pretending to be asleep, until you came along. Simon looked at me, his gaze suddenly becoming very tender. You're like a reckless fool, charging in headfirst, smashing the rules of this place to pieces. You made me realize that the reason humanity can still be saved is because of fools like you. Man, even though you're praising me, why does it sound like an insult? Anna, go home. He suddenly reached his hand through the bars. The system says that if I'm willing to pay the price, I can send you home painlessly. You don't have to suffer through the fire. I was stunned. There's such a good deal? But what about you? I'll stay here, to atone or to change something. A dagger suddenly appeared in his hand, shimmering with a cold light. Before I could react, the dagger was plunged into my chest. Surprisingly, it didn't hurt at all. My vision began to blur, and my body felt light as air. Hey! I grabbed his sleeve. Blood stained his expensive silk shirt. Simon, you're actually a good man. Truly. Simon looked at me, his eyes slightly red. Don't go handing out good man cards. I just killed my wife. How can I be a good man? In your next life, don't be so stubborn. It makes it easy to end up alone. In the last second before my consciousness faded, I thought I felt him place a kiss on my forehead. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in the modern world. Air conditioning, Wi-Fi, ice-cold Coke. I lay on my soft mattress, feeling like I had lived a lifetime. That medieval nightmare was over. But I felt an emptiness in my heart. I opened my computer and searched for that medieval Cinderella story. Surprisingly, an extra chapter had been released. I clicked on it with a trembling hand. 3 years after the marriage, Prince Charlie inherited the throne, and Lilith became queen. 5 years into the marriage, Charlie had an affair. Lilith did not endure it in silence. Like a traditional woman, she had awakened under the influence of her stepmother, Anna. She launched a coup, imprisoned Charlie, and became the first queen in history. As for Earl Simon, he never remarried after the death of his wife, Anna. He dedicated his life to medical and scientific progress, known to history as the artisan before the dawn. Looking at the words on the screen, my tears fell without warning. So, it's not that I changed nothing. The butterfly that screamed in anger by the moat, with the flapping of its wings, finally stirred up a storm that spanned 100 years. Simon, look. This was my ideal. Does this also count as the happiness you wanted?